7 p.m. We'll begin with roll call.
John Miller.
Here.
Steve Becker.
Here.
Patrice Steiner. Here. Barbara Doss. Here. Ken Killian.
Here.
Michael Galecki.
Here.
Eileen Nichols. Here.
First on the agenda tonight, we have a public hearing regarding Resolution 11-09 authorizing the submission of a community development block grant application for 2012 street and utility extensions located within the Platteville Industry Park. Staff presentation, and then Chuck Sulik is here to also give us an update on that. Do you want to do it, or just go right to Chuck?
I'd like to introduce him. As we get started tonight, one of the things that we did at one of our last meetings was we approved the development agreement with Emmy Roth. As a part of that development in our industrial park, we become eligible for certain grants that can be used for infrastructure. Tonight, what you have before you is the required public hearing that must take place before we can apply for the CDBG grant to help pay for infrastructure in our industrial park. Currently, the guarantee is for 32 jobs from Emmy Roth. I spoke to them yesterday at the signing for the documents, this morning, and they said that they are looking at trying to up that number to help us get more grant money. So having said that, I'd like to introduce Chuck Sulik from MSA. He'll go over real quickly for the audience and the council what the grant is expected to cover. Chuck.
Thank you, Larry. Larry does a good job of introducing the topic and also stealing thunder, so I can keep my comments really brief.
I apologize.
That's okay. My name again is Chuck Sulik. I work with MSA Professional Services. It's a consulting firm out of Baraboo, Wisconsin. And I've been working with the city of Platteville in the preparation of a grant application that will help attract a new business to the city of Platteville. And this particular grant is available to extend infrastructure in support of new business attraction and job growth within the community. One of the requirements of that grant application is to conduct a public hearing, to share the proposal, of course, with the public, and to generate any ideas that you might have in terms of other community development needs within the community. So I'm required to say a few words here. Again, as Larry points out, the public hearing function or purpose tonight is to give you an opportunity to meet the requirement under the Community Development Block Grant Program, and we'll share with you information on that program. The program, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, has been around for a long time, since the mid-'70s, and it provides grant monies, grant awards to communities under 50,000 in population under the Small Cities Program. Typically, Wisconsin annually gets about $28 million from the federal government. Each state gets an allocation from Washington, and that is split basically equally between housing, public facilities, and economic development needs of the particular state. This is a competitive program here in Wisconsin. There are a number of sub-programs within that umbrella of three, and I'll go over those really quickly. The first would be the CDBG Economic Development Program, which can provide low-interest loans for businesses that are expanding or locating within the community and creating new jobs in particular for low to moderate income beneficiaries, which is a main focus of this particular program. The funds are awarded in the form of a grant to the community. They in turn turn it over to the business and make available a low-interest loan typically. Okay. The second sub-program is the Public Facilities Program. It's a program that provides grant monies for basic infrastructure improvements of the community as a whole. Water, sewer, storm sewer, sidewalks, streets, curb and gutter, those kinds of things. Water towers, wastewater treatment plants. Has nothing to do with business growth. It's rather needs of the community itself. As the current program exists, the community can submit a public facilities application at any time of the year. It is typically capped off at about $500,000, and there is a match requirement as part of that program as well. Typically, the public facility program provides in the neighborhood of 25 to 50%. 30% is most common, I would say, for this particular program. Under that, there's a hybrid program which combines the economic development and public facilities program, It's called Public Facilities for Economic Development, and that's our specific proposal or interest for tonight. But it is a hybrid program. Again, it's to extend or provide infrastructure in support of either new business or existing business expansion that's going to be creating jobs for the community. And that's the one we're interested in tonight. Another sub-program is the CDBG Brownfields program, monies that can be used to clean up environmentally contaminated sites. And this program is useful when there's a reuse in mind for the site, and it's usually involves attracting a business that would locate on this site to get it cleaned up and suitable for economic growth. The program has a small sub-program called the Planning Grant Program. I know that the City of Platteville has been the recipient of that one as well. There was a plan for downtown revitalization prepared just a few years ago. Small grants anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 can be provided to a given applicant. And then finally is a sub-program for housing rehabilitation within the community. And the City of Platteville, I know over the years, has been very successful with the housing program dating back to the mid-70s. And it provides funds to rehab, remodel homes of low to moderate income households, and it can pay for any basic improvement of the home, wiring, plumbing, electrical, those kinds of things. Again, the city, I know, has been a recipient of that multiple times. And in fact, that program remains in the city. The program typically provides 0% deferred loans to households that apply for these money. And so it's a 0% loan. It's paid back at the time the house is sold. That money comes back to the community, and then it's recycled into additional housing rehab programming for the city. And you've been very successful with that. The proposal, again, is for the PFED portion of the block grant program, Public Facilities for Economic Development. And what we're looking to do is extend Vision Drive roughly from Enterprise Drive down to Ubersox. That would provide a direct traffic route for this business to get its trucks out onto the interstate system. Based on the number of jobs that are being proposed here, we are hopeful that we can receive a grant in excess of $600,000 and possibly more, depending on the final number of jobs that might be created here over time. It's roughly a $2 million project overall. At this point, I'm supposed to stop and ask the public if there are any other housing or community development needs that you perhaps might identify, or feel free to ask questions about this PFED proposal as well. We'll start out with housing needs. Any discussion or comments, questions regarding housing needs? How about community development needs, either water, sewer, streets, anything of public infrastructure within the community? Hearing no comments on those, any questions about the specific proposal? What we'll do upon city action on a resolution to submit this grant, it will go to the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, which is the state agency that oversees this program. We should hear back from the state hopefully within 30 days or so, usually about a 1-month turnaround. So that's where we're at, and if there are any other comments, here's one question.
One question, you said it would be perhaps $600,000. I add this up, we have a cost supposedly about $5.5 million, but only part of that qualifies as far as...
Right, again,
applying
we're looking
it?
for phase 1 expansion in the business park here, so we're looking specifically at Vision Drive, okay? Extension of Vision Drive from Enterprise, connecting ultimately to Ubersox Road. I think the cost estimates that you have take into mind other phases of business park development, again, over time.
They're out there, but,
Right,
okay,
okay?
2 million roughly?
And we're only seeking for phase 1, not for all 4 phases, because that's what we decide, I mean.
For a couple of reasons.
Okay.
The block grant monies that are available are, of course, limited.
Okay.
And secondly, it's also based on the number of jobs that are being proposed, suggested as part of this overall project.
Excuse me, as businesses expand in the industrial park, we'll have the opportunity to apply for additional grants.
Yes, good point. One of the beauties of this program is that you're not limited to one of these per year or per occasion, you know. So you have a new opportunity that transpires 6 months from now or whatever, you would be in a position to once again apply.
How
What's the
soon will we
minimum?
know? How soon will we know?
How soon will you know?
Yeah,
Well, I can't speak for the state. They're obviously the ones that review the applications, but historically, typically, 30 days is not that uncommon.
you
But
apply
don't,
and
I can't
30
speak
days
for,
later, you generally find out.
generally, yes.
Okay.
One question, Emmy Roth plans to hire 32 people to start. Is there a minimum number of employees that this grant application needs in order to be approved?
Yeah, we're hopeful that we can take advantage of all 32 that are being proposed here. And the minimum for the program, for this project, or for this grant program, is about 10 jobs. 10 would be a starting point, if you will.
Anything else? Would you orient that back toward the council, since people speaking should address the council? Thank you. It's okay with the public hearing, but point it a little bit more. Thank you. Okay, no one indicated a desire to offer a public statement in favor, no one against, and no one in general. Council discussion. Motion to close the public hearing would be in order.
So
Move
moved.
to close. Second.
Dawes and Killian. The motion is second to close the public hearing. Roll call vote, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Becker.
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Dawes,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Delecky,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Council action?
Motion to adopt Resolution 1109, authorizing submission of a community development block grant application.
Second.
The motion is second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Becker.
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Dawes,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Delecky,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Next on the agenda is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate if you would prefer separate discussion and action. Item A is the minutes of the March 20th and 27th council meetings. B is payment of bills. C, the March financial report. D is 2011 budget appropriation adjustments. E, 2011 fiscal year to 2012 fiscal year budget carryovers. F is appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight, I'm appointing Tim Bolt to the Police and Fire Commission to replace Ed Faraday and to finish out his term. Ed is moving out of town, so he can no longer serve in that capacity. And Clay Schaefer to the Board of Review. G is licenses. The temporary Class B license for the Platteville J.C.'s to sell fermented malt beverages at Legion Field for the 4th of July celebration and the tractor pull held July 3rd to 5th. 1 and or 2 year operators licenses for premises licensed to traffic in fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquors. Item H is a permit for an alley closing between Hickory and Bradford Street from noon to 8 p.m. on April 21st. And I, an amendment to contract for Water Street real estate acquisition. Is there any item on which you'd prefer separate discussion and action?
Mr. President, may I raise a point?
Excuse me?
May I comment?
Sure.
At one of our last council meetings, we talked about the library funding. I just want to make sure everyone recognizes that in the dollar amounts to be carried over is the $40,915 to replenish the library building fund account. So we did include that in the carryovers in anticipation that that might be something you'd like to do. If you don't, we simply could remove that.
Okay, thank you. Care to make a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 5 tonight is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any, and we ask that you please limit comments to no more than 5 minutes. No one has indicated a desire to speak there. Next is reports. We have committee reports. Water and Sewer Commission, I have nothing to add. Ken or Patrice?
No addition.
Tourism Commission, Committee? Nothing to add. Commission on Aging? Nothing to add. Museum Board?
Nothing.
Area Ambulance Committee.
Well, we have a work session tonight.
We have other reports as well, the 2013 Staffing Plan Quarterly Report, the March Airport Financial Report, the March Water and Sewer Expenditures and Revenue Report, the March City Attorney Statement, and Department Progress Reports. And before we go on to Larry's introduction, are there any questions or observations or issues with those?
I was wondering in the city manager's staffing plan report, and I don't know if this person is here, but I know that the communications specialist was hired. Could you please provide her background or?
That was next.
Okay.
That was the next thing.
If I may, I'd like to introduce her, yes. Would you like me to do that now?
Sure, I don't think we have any other questions there, so that was the next.
Excellent. As part of our 2013 staffing plan, the city council and I had worked out a organization which included the addition of a communications specialist. This person is expected to assist with community communications. Judging by the size of the audience, maybe that's not necessary, but we want to do everything we can to make sure that the community is engaged and alerted to events and functions occurring within the city. So this position will be responsible for doing press releases. We're expecting interviews to be done of council members, city department heads. That'll appear on our cable channel so that the public has an update and can visualize departments and what they're doing. We expect that this position will also assist with social networking with over half of the community college students. It's a good idea for the city to be engaging our population to pay particular attention to what goes on at the city. So to further this, we've hired a new communications specialist. Her name is Tiffany Terry. She was educated at Southern Illinois University. She has a communications, radio, and television bachelor's degree with a minor in journalism. She just recently moved from West Lafayette, Indiana, to the city of Platteville, and has formerly worked for a TV station whose programs have been picked up by CBS and CNN. She's been nominated for an Emmy Award. And she comes to us highly accredited and lots of skills. So with that, I'd like to welcome Tiffany Terry.
I'm Tiffany. It's nice to meet you guys. I'm sure I'll get to know you well as time goes on. If there's anything, been working on getting the social networking sites up. I added a Twitter account today for the city and also a Facebook page that people can like. So if you're on any of the social networking sites, like that or follow our city's page. And also you can tell other people too. It's a great way for us to get news out instantly to people, any updates, anything happening like that. So that's kind of what I've been working on, and there's a lot of things that I have on my list to do. So if there's anything you'd like to add, anything you'd like to see me do, shoot me an email, call, stop by, whatever. I'm here to help, and whatever you guys want me to get out, you can. So.
Just make that
Where's your
webpage
office?
as user-friendly as you can.
Okay, I'm working on it. I'm
office?
in the city manager's office,
In the manager's
right behind Kim. Yep. So, do you guys have any questions or anything?
We talked about you yesterday.
Okay.
Anyway, this was in Water and Sewer Commission, and I made a suggestion that we ought to be telling the public as to what we're doing with water and sewer as far as all our expenditures.
Okay.
So would that fall in your domain?
I think it would. Yeah.
We're not getting the story out.
Okay.
Or what-
Yeah, that's something if we.
People come to us and say the bills are getting higher and higher, and
Yeah.
we need to tell people what's being done.
Yeah, we could easily break that down and put that on the website and also advertise that on the social networking sites and contact the media about that. We can, shoot me an email with kind of what you're thinking or call. That'd be great. So.
If I can add a little bit to what Ken just said here, everybody who's driven around Platteville knows that the roads are dug up every year and we're replacing pipes and other things, and sometimes it's not obvious what the result of that is. There's a community, I believe it's in Georgia, which has about a $3.5 billion debt to replace their water and sewer. And the cost to residents for water and sewer is so high that many of them have put porta potties in their backyard and disconnected from the entire system. And what we've been doing is work so that 5 and 10 and 20 years from now, we are never gonna have that kind of issue. we've kept up, as they say. And you're going to see more and more over the next 5, 10, 15 years, communities just be crushed by debt loads that they have to take on to do the work that we've been doing all along. And that's not necessarily for you, that's for everybody as well. We talked about this in water and sewer, and we're doing what we're supposed to do, so.
Yep, and those are the kinds of things I'd love to, obviously I'm new to the community, so I'm not really sure what's happening and things like that. It's gonna take me a while to get up, so, you know, if you guys could get me up to speed, I'd really appreciate that, so.
Tiffany, you've talked a lot about social media, Twitter and Facebook and websites. What kind of plans do you have to communicate with people who don't make use
Don't have to.
of these electronic methods? Because there are,
Oh, there are a lot. That's where the press releases will come in handy. I'm making a list now of all the media outlets that are somehow connected to Platteville, whether they're in Dubuque or Cedar Rapids. They still report, you know, besides the paper here and radio stations here, kind of going out even to Madison and Cedar Rapids and stuff, and sending them the press releases also. And by doing that and also having the cable network or cable access channel, that's a way for people to stay in touch too. But with the press releases, you do have to rely on those media outlets to put that on the air or in print. So that's one way. If you have any other suggestions and ways, I'd love to hear that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. Okay. Is there anything else on the other reports or commentary there?
I do have something on the city manager's staffing plan. I'd like to get some more information, or let's put it this way, I'd like to have a more complete balance sheet as far as what we're eliminating as far as staff positions and what we're adding on. This report here says that we have a total savings of $82,821. However, when I go through and add on, I added on the administrative assistant, the finance director, the director of administration, communications specialist this evening. I come up with $207,000, and then I come up with elimination of 118, which makes a difference of 88,000. So people ask me, what's the savings? So I need to know the answer, because when I go through this for myself, I don't come up with a savings of 82,000. So that needs to be.
Okay, I
Gone
believe
through.
the staffing plan is to be phased in until December 31st, 2013. And what you see is the $82,000 worth of savings so far as of March 31st, 2012. I don't anticipate adding positions unless you can afford to pay for that out of the savings. So at this point, we will be using some of that $82,000 into the next quarter to help pay for new positions, as well as recognizing some retirements over the next 2 or 3 quarters. So in the end, the plan will be a net benefit to the city financially. But as of right now, it's simply saving $82,000. That number only goes until the end of March. And as you'll note at the beginning, the communication specialist started April 9th. So on your next report, you will see that as an expense added to the update.
That's what I'm looking ahead to see, with the positions being added, what the total cost is going to be versus what we're going to be saving. Thank you.
Okay, any others? Okay, moving on to item 7 tonight, action items. A under action is a 2012 budget adjustment. This is for library building fund monies. With a brief staff explanation.
Certainly. This was discussed at a previous council meeting. What we talked about was the $50,000 that's in the budget to be taken from the library building fund and used to help pay for the capital improvement projects for the city. Earlier, the city council, back a couple of years, 2010, said you were not particularly interested in a new library, so the fund has been set and unused. The $50,000, as I understand it, the city council asked me for a proposal on how to take that out of the budget and leave it in the library building fund. And what I've done is I put together a staff note suggesting that we, that the council reduce the transfer from 50,000 to 34,000, to use the money that's being transferred to pay for improvements planned at the library in 2012. So the library would essentially use their own library building fund to help pay for capital projects at the library in 2012. The remaining approximately 15,000, we would have to amend our budget to remove $5,000 from administration and roughly another 10,000 from the capital improvement fund, and I recommended the street construction account. There's a lot of stuff in our capital improvement account that we had anticipated borrowing for, like the new ambulance garage, a new ambulance, and that hasn't occurred at this point, so the fund doesn't have a lot of flexibility on where to get the funding. So our recommendation is to reduce the transfer from 50,000 to 34,000, and then reduce the expense account for administration by 5,000, and reduce the street construction expense by about 10,000.
Thank you. Any questions for Larry?
Does this result in any additional money for the library? 15,682.
Yeah.
So instead of resulting in an additional 50,000 as we projected last time, or as we authorized last time, this results in an additional 15,682 for the library.
That's correct. Now, did the city council, did you vote to do that last meeting? To do the 50?
I thought we did.
Okay.
We did.
All right. So the option that I came up with to do this is to use the 34,000 that their capital improvement projects are costing out of that 50. So if this wasn't what you're looking for, then I can take another shot at trying to come up with the money. I can be honest with you that your budget is pretty tight, and I have no idea where you're going to find $34,000.
So Larry, what you're saying is the 34,000 is coming out of the library's CIP budget. They're not going to get that money to use, but you want them to use for their projects that they've got for the 34,000 out of their building fund.
Yes.
Okay.
The money coming out of their building fund would be used for the capital improvement projects in the library.
But you've taken their they had projected $34,000 and $318 to do capital improvements this year in the library.
That's right.
And then they had asked for 50,000 to be reinstated so that they could do actually 84,300.
That was the request.
So now, instead of 84,000, this would basically authorize 50,000. I don't
Yep.
care if you put it in the CIP or in the operating budget, wherever you put it. If you're gonna buy paint, you're gonna buy paint. If you're gonna fix lights, this basically says they would now have, a total of 50,000 instead of the 84,318 that they had asked for. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what the memo recommends. If you would like to attempt to meet with me to find an additional 35,000, I can try to do that. I think your budget is going to be tight enough in the CIP that unless you want to borrow the money, we're going to have some difficulty.
Do you know, Larry, did the library board, did you talk to them, or did they come up with an agreement to say, okay, we'll take and forego the CIP budget that is allocated to us and take our capital improvement out of our building fund? I don't know if the library board, I think you have to.
There wasn't.
Time enough?
Yeah, you may notice that it says county library funds in one of the paragraphs. That should be the library building fund.
Correct.
You know, I have not been able to appropriate enough time to get the paperwork done to make sure you have the information that I should be doing. And quite honestly, I should have appropriated more time to do this. And it's very difficult to do. So that error got by me, and I did not have enough time to talk to the library board. If you guys want to table this until the library board has a meeting, we could do that. But I was unable to get on the agenda and to meet with the library board to discuss this.
Yeah, because the library board may go along with that if they understand the program. And I also would like to have you explain, because I'll make a motion here to table it, but to explain the other paragraph where the staff further recommends the library budget become a completely different fund. I think if you explain that to the library board so everybody knows what that thought process is, you and I talked on the phone, I understand what is a good way to do this, but I think you have to share that with the library board, so I think we should, I'll make a motion
Well,
to table this or not.
Wait. Cindy Tang is asked to speak on this issue. Why don't we give a chance to
Okay.
let her do that before we do this?
Cindy Tang, and I live at 995 Highbury Circle. I'm a member of the library board, and the library board did not know about taking the $50,000 out of our building fund to put it in the capital improvement fund this year. That was never discussed with us. That wasn't part of the budgeting process. So we were against it because we need that fund for improvements on the library or for a new library. And what's going to happen is if this money basically is used now, then when we get ready to do the improvements on the library, we're going to be coming back to the taxpayers and the council and asking for money. Whereas, we do have this money that has been set aside, but if it's, taken out and used, then it's not going to be there for the improvements that we need. So I'm speaking in favor of not using that $50,000 and keeping it for future improvements or a new library.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I still like to table it so the library board at least has got a chance to discuss this as a board. And I don't think they meet until the first Tuesday of the month, so I think I'd like to table it until the first council meeting,
I'll second.
Was that a motion to table?
to table until the first council meeting in May.
And Barb, you second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table, non-debatable. Roll call vote, please.
Miller,
Yes?
Becker,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Delecky, Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B tonight under action is to award contract 2-12, the Second Street reconstruction. Brief staff explanation, please.
Okay. We've been talking about Second Street. This project would include full reconstruction of Second Street between Main and Furnace Street, except there would be no water main replacement. We've been working with the businesses and owners on Second Street regarding the project, and we believe that we have a good plan here. Through the efforts of Joe Carroll, we have $215,000 grant to help us with putting the electrical wiring underground. What we have is we've got the base bid that includes reconstruction of streets with wider sidewalks, colored and stamped concrete like Main Street between Main and Mineral, and decorative lighting to replace the overhead lighting between Main and Mineral Street. Alternate A includes concrete pavement for the second block between Mineral and Furnace with a bid price of $33,340. Alternate B includes the colored and decorative stamped concrete for that second block, $45.15. Alternate C includes an additional 7 decorative lights between Mineral and Furnace Street. And that would be at a bid price of $50,840, or an average of $72.6286 per pole with wiring. Alternate D was something that I had requested just to see where we were in regard with LED lighting. The cost for that alternative would have been $11,700 for the 16 fixtures, or a little over $700 per fixture. At this point, that's not a very favorable payback So at this point, the only reason to choose this would be promoting green alternatives and not necessarily cost savings at this point. We opened the bids. There were 3 bidders. The low bidder was Rule Construction, and then there's the different alternates. What staff is recommending is award with alternates A through C to Rule Construction at the bid price of $62,409 for water and sewer, $364,332.65 for the city portion. Grand total $426,741.65.
Thank you. I agree with omitting D. I think it was worth a shot, but I think you're right. I think it's a lot of money, but not much payback. Questions or?
I do have a question about the LED. I know in recent action that the city of Fenimore has replaced all of its streetlights with LEDs. And so I believe there was some kind of program that they were able to take advantage of, perhaps through their electric utility, which is perhaps different than our electric utility. But at any rate, have we investigated any programs that our electric utility might have to promote this type of green alternative?
I haven't done a full investigation. The only one that I know about is Focus on Energy. The city of Fenimore runs its own electric utility and has additional avenues for them.
I would move to award contract 212 Second Street reconstruction with alternates A through C to Rule Construction at the bid price of $62,409 for water and sewer and $364,332.65 for the city portion for a grand total of $426,741.65.
Second.
The motion is second. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Delecky,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item C tonight, under action, is to award contract 4-12 highway painting. Brief staff discussion?
This is one that we've been doing for a number of years now. We would have normally have done all of Broadway, but our plan is to reconstruct Broadway in the next couple of years, so we removed those. We opened bids. There were 2 bidders. Low bidder was highway painting. For highway painting is Guideline out of Rio. Total bid price $4,112. What we're going to do is our plan is to update our markings on Broadway from Madison to Hazeldale and on Main Street between Water and Broadway. So I recommend that we award the contract.
Thank you.
One question, Howard, why do you think there's such a difference in the 2 bids?
I think that the other bidder probably realized that there wasn't a whole lot of work to be done and ended up basically charging a lot of mobilization, because once they get here, it won't take them very long to do it, because they use the little truck and they just zip right through it, and it's pretty much done. So I think the other one charged a lot for the mobilization, getting their vehicles and people down here.
Okay. And have you ever hired Guideline before? Done work
Yes,
with them?
yes, they've done highway painting for us in the past.
Okay.
Howard, are we required by either state or county regulations to do these markings?
The Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD, requires traffic striping for certain streets that have over a certain amount of traffic per day. I can't remember. I think it's like 3,000 vehicles per day. It's required. Our preference is to use the epoxy because it lasts longer than our guys going out there with the water-based paint.
So we have to do this.
Yes.
It
No.
seems reasonable to assume most people know what side of the road to drive on, and we would need lines to separate the two sides, but,
Well,
okay.
yeah.
Action?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Steiner got there first. Motion is second. Any discussion?
I just have one
ahead.
additional question, Howard. You said there was a plan to reconstruct Broadway probably from,
From Maine to Madison over the next couple of years.
so is the first section of that scheduled for 2013?
That's what's in the capital improvement plan right now.
Okay, thank you.
And we're not painting that section, right?
And that's why we're not painting it this year.
Okay, so, that's good. Okay, anything else? Roll call vote, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Delecky,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item D tonight is a developer agreement with Stevens Construction that was tabled at the March 13th, 2012 meeting.
I'll make a motion to take it off the table.
Second.
The motion is second. Roll call vote to do that, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Doss,
I wasn't here when we tabled it, so I guess I abstain.
Killian,
No.
Delecky,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So it's back on. Stevens Construction is back tonight to talk about this some more. We had a discussion with them last week in a work session meeting. And they're back. Mark Rudnicki is here to indicate to us specifically what they're thinking about with the project right now, and I'd ask him to come forward and explain to us what their thinking is at this point.
Do you need me to state my name again?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mark Rudnicki with Stevens Construction, representing the development group for the Pine Street development. After the series of meetings and obviously the work session last week, we've gone back and had to resize the project based upon a smaller footprint in order to move forward and be able to accomplish the project without altering Bonson Street. And so we've been able to do that and come up with a, the parking seems to be the hot button issue, obviously from our previous meetings. So we wanted to lay out an updated parking plan with a smaller footprint, so people could see how parking stalls in the project would be affected. And we're pretty excited about the solution that we've come up with. We've met with Connie at the senior center to understand exactly what the senior center's needs are, and we've found a solution that gets short-term parking back into the project, which we had taken out in a previous iteration to try to maximize the number of spots, so that we've now got short-term parking with an entry off of Bonson Street towards the rear of the building, towards the alley behind the building. That provides for 22 indoor short-term parking stalls with 4 handicap stalls towards the end of the building with the entrance off of Bonson Street. That would be, short-term stalls, basically indoor. So you'd have 22 indoor, you'd have 5 stalls in the alley, that reduced from the 6 stalls in the alley to 5 with the smaller footprint. That provides for essentially 27 short-term stalls. And 22 of those being inside, so you'd have it actually be tempered air with essentially a sensory regulated overhead door that is a vehicle approach from either the inside or the outside would raise and close just to keep the air tempered inside. With that, the lower level towards the rear of the building would be the long-term public leased parking, which would provide for 23 stalls. So you'd have a net of 50 stalls for the project, allocated 23 long-term leased, 27 short-term. That would be for the the public. So that's, even with the smaller footprint of the building, we're able to keep 50 of those stalls. I think currently in the lot there's 51. But we're not altering Bonson Street at all, so the parking that's along Bonson is staying there as well. And so we feel like this is a proposal that essentially mirrors what's there right now, and solves the short-term need of the senior center, and we feel really good about it moving forward. With this proposal then, for the tenants of the building itself, there's 44 stalls that would, I think the previous iteration may have had 45, so we lost maybe one stall in each allocation as the building got slightly smaller. But the impact, we feel really good about where we're at with that.
Questions for Mark?
Is it still the plan to have, the garage doors, for the, permanent spaces? The garage doors, with the, what do they call it, the automatic opening?
Yeah, and then we don't have the exact system, whether it would be kind of a fob system or if it'll be a, opener. Essentially, people would be leasing out a numbered spot in the long-term parking. So that would, those spots would be leased in theory on a monthly basis. It would be the goal.
Okay, but then coming in from the senior center from here, this would be,
That would just be a proximity, like if you're at a car dealership and you pull up and the door just opens up, those short-term spots, that's gonna be people free to come and go.
oh,
They're just gonna be regulated, we're gonna try to do the best job we can to regulate them short-term so you keep the traffic flow. We're gonna, so as you approach the door, whether you're approaching it from the outside or the inside, then the door will open up. We just need to have a door that's, closed so that we can keep that air tempered, because it's right below where there's units above, so we can't have that open air. Plus, that'll be a nicer amenity for the short-term parking than is there right now.
okay, and did this change in the footprint, did it change the number of units in the building?
We've been focusing so much on the parking, we haven't exactly, it will be less than the 110 beds, but I don't have the exact number. But it will be a number smaller than 110 that we had before.
Other questions?
Yeah, help me under, the lower, the 4th Street entered public parking would be long-term leased parking, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you say long-term leased, that would be overnight?
It would be essentially.
Whatever people could lease, and if they didn't want to park there at all, they wouldn't have to. If
Correct.
they paid for it, it's theirs, they could, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
And those rates would be set as the market would,
Correct.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's gonna end up being at this point in time.
and then the next level, the upper level, or the second level parking, that comes in off Bonson Street, when you say public parking short-term, is there a cost to that for the person who parks?
Right now, we've kicked around lots of different ideas, from anything from metering stalls to having a entry exit. I think the current plan is to just have those be no cost, have them be regulated short-term, and do the best that we can to enforce the short-term parking so you get the turnover of those stalls so they're really being used for their intended purpose. So that either for the senior center or for businesses downtown, that you're getting people with short-term.
And then would the thought be that they would be empty overnight, or somebody could park overnight?
Well, I think that we don't have that exactly thought through yet, but I think there is a real possibility. That was something we were discussing today, of this may be a way to help with some of the overnight parking as well. So there is a possibility that we could incorporate that.
In after 10, out before 6, or?
Right. I mean, the main time frame, for the senior center, I think is between 9 and 3. For the other businesses, obviously, maybe a little earlier than that, a little later than that. But the main, short-term need is obviously during the day, not at night. So there probably is some good synergy that we could get some overnight parking there as well.
And we're gonna look at some type of provision for the senior citizen center, so that if they have, it's a 2-hour short term, but in the case of, some kind of permit where they can stay longer if they have to, when there's an event going on at the senior citizen center.
Yep, absolutely. We've talked to Connie about that,
Similar to
and
what
similar
we
to
do-
what's happening right
What we
now.
now do.
Right.
While I understand that there's a special need at, relative to the seniors and the senior center, I would note that there are a lot of other businesses where customers use short-term parking, and that really would, so I don't want us to forget about the other,
Yep.
the other
We're-
businesses that rely on the availability of short-term parking so that people can stop and shop.
Yeah, our goal with this proposal is to try to as close as we could mirror what's there now. That seems to be working as far as the short-term parking. You know, where we have a good situation for the senior center, and there's also available short-term parking for the other businesses.
So this proposal has the short-term parking on the upper level, and if I'm reading this correctly, there are 22 spots?
For 22 indoor spots and then 5 along the alley outside, correct?
So the alley would still be used.
Yep.
And this would become a private parking lot, is that correct?
Correct.
So the city would not have any enforcement.
Correct.
Which means also we're not responsible for maintenance. And since it becomes part of a taxable entity, it would pay taxes on that.
Yep.
Well, and what we say upper level, we're talking about ground level at the Bonson Street.
Right.
So it'll be a
Walk in,
walk in, walk out.
Was this a total 4-story building, 2 levels of parking, 2 levels of,
It'll be, from the Bonson Street side, it'll look like a 4-story building. From the Forest Street side, it'll look like it's a 5-story building, because you'll have
Okay,
2
so
levels
there's-
of parking, 3
and
levels
3 levels of apartment?
of residential, yep.
And that's the way it always was?
Yes.
But, you know, too, of course, since your proposal is to have primarily students in here, during the summer, when we have the tourist season, we probably wouldn't expect there to be too many students in that apartment, would we?
I would guess that that is probably true. Yeah.
So, where we'd have them there would be the time of year when we don't have tourism, generally.
Do you have a breakdown yet of 1-bedroom apartments, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom?
We have not redone the mix since we've shrunk the footprint of the building. The focus is on the smaller size units. As it's focused towards units, but it's towards students, but it's really focused towards students that are, obviously with the university, with the policies, it's juniors and seniors and grad students. But we're really looking for the smaller units is the goal, to have as many of the 1 and 2 bedroom units as we can. We think that's nice on lots of levels, and less likely to have groups of students that might cause problems and have a different level of people when you're talking more about grad students and things like that than the younger underclassmen.
Now, it's easier to find 1 roommate than 3.
Yeah.
Other questions for Mark? Any other questions, or no? Okay, a number of people have indicated they'd like to speak to this issue tonight. I'd ask that if you would please work your way back over behind where the staff is so that we can have an orderly progression here, starting with Dave Spenceley, Glenn Barr, Bob Stoffaker, and Kathy Austin to start, and I'll read them more as we go along here.
Yes.
If I
While they-
could, oh, I'm sorry.
And while they do that, Oh, is that, oh, I didn't know what that was. That's, okay. I thought it was just, Marjorie Spenceley, Bill Macbeth, Kathy Cluth, Barb Browning, Jane Stark, Paula Stoffaker, and Tom Cradwell have all indicated that they've registered against this.
I ran off 25 copies of the parking plan. It's in the back on the table if anybody wants a copy.
I would ask, when people speak, if they would please address the council, and please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. And please state your name and address when you begin.
Hello. I'm Dave Spenceley. My wife and I, my wife Margie and I own the bridal boutique at 40 East Main, downtown Platteville. I have an interesting view here, which I've left with you folks. I thought I'd go over it with you if you want to follow along, on the asset that we hold in that parking lot. I think it's time to start charging for downtown parking. I have no problem with that. I have children that go to the university system all over. We go to Dubuque, we pay for parking. To pay parking in some of these lots, maybe down Main Street, especially for the long term, is probably something that we need to begin. As you can see, the long-term parking there, I have 24 stalls, $2 a day is $48 times 30 days is $1,440 a month. Short-term parking, 26 stalls. We'll put in some pay-for-park boxes, which is, you don't have to put a meter on everyone, you just put a box or two in that lot. They go up to the box with their credit card or their cash. They buy their ticket for 2 to 4 hours, whatever they want to buy. I'm sure we could get $3 a day off those stalls. I kept it quite minimal. $78 for 22 days is all I figured on that, because on the weekends when there's the movie and there's people downtown eating, I don't think we need to charge for that. $1,700 comes to $3,100 a month. 12 months of that, 1 year's revenue, $37,872. Now, Stevens have already said they're going to charge for that parking. So there will be parking charge there. They said with some of the meetings I was at, whatever the market will bear. I feel this is somewhat whatever the market will bear. If we go through this, we've been seeing $100,000 in tax revenue. That's what we've been talking about here on this project since day one. That's exciting. The only issue we have is we've taken a TIF for $261,000 so they can buy the lot. And for the TIF, all the taxes saved from all the taxes kept till the TIF is paid off. So let's just use $100,000 for 3 years for round figures with interest. So the first 3 years of the tax money is to pay back the TIF of the $261,000. After year 3, the city of Platteville only receives $31,000 for this lot. The rest of the tax goes to the vocational school, fire department, the school tax, the county tax. So as you can see, we're only going to get $31,000. Now, in the development agreement, I see where we're giving them $600,000 grant for concessions, and receiving $31,000 in taxes will take over 25 years for the people of Platteville to see $1 off that lot. If you figure the interest at 4 or 5%, and how do we know what it's going to be in 25 years? Between the 3 years of the TIF repayment and the 25 years of grant, the city will see no money for approximately 28 years. The $38,000 per year collected off the existing parking lot will net out over $1 million for the city in those same 28 years. Pay for parking boxes, back to what I said. They're run with a GPS. I don't know what they cost. You have to put a couple of those in, maybe only one. I still have an issue why we are offering $1 million for these people to put an apartment in the downtown area. We haven't offered it to anyone else, and I still have a problem with why it's being offered to these people. We're plugging up the system, we're giving up our parking. As you can see, it's an asset to the downtown Platteville. It's the only parking on the south side of Main Street. Another thing it does is if you leave that parking lot open, it gives your second and third levels of building that are on Main Street to develop, because it'll give us more room to park. We already have development there that we should be doing, we don't have to go brand new. As far as the charging of the lot and figures, I've paid a lot of parking already. I have 4 children. 2 of them are through the UW system. I have 2 of them currently in the UW system. I like them to have a job when they go to school, so I pay, they have a car and I pay for their parking. This is very minimal to what we're paying in Madison and La Crosse. Another thing with the Stevens project, we still haven't really, they really haven't said in those 110 beds what the maximum people are that are going to be there. As far as I'm concerned, with college kids, I think there could be 160 there. If there's 160, there could easily be 120 cars. And I just feel that the 88 stalls or whatever they're ending up with is short of what they're building. And those cars are just going to come out and crowd the rest of our downtown area that we already have issues with. I mean, there could easily be another 50, 60 cars in downtown Maine because of that. We just don't need it. I understand, you said last week, the Stevens Construction has spent roughly $25,000 in the doing the planning of this. That's just part of their business. Did you look at their website? They've done hundreds of millions of dollars in buildings. I'm not saying that's very proud. That's good. But for them to come here and spend $25,000, we've all done that. I was in the equipment business for 15 years, 15, 20 years. I did a lot of bids that I never got the final say on, and I spent money doing it. So I don't think that should be an issue. Do you have any questions on what I went over as far as the dollars on the existing lot? Mike?
There are a couple of misconceptions here. Number one, all of that $100,000, assuming that's the $100,000, goes to pay off the TIF until it is paid off, and only then does it get split up amongst the various taxing entities.
And how much of the $1 million is TIF money?
$600,000 so far as I know. The $261,000 will get paid back to us into the general fund, and my understanding is the other $200,000 will be paid back over 10 years to the redevelopment authority.
But what?
And so it's $1 million, but it's $1 million minus the $461,000, and so you kind of have to acknowledge that that's what's also happening. So just so there's no misconception here, after the TIF is paid off, then that $100,000 gets split up amongst the tax.
And you're saying that the $600,000 is coming from the TIF district?
That's my understanding, yeah.
That's not what it says in the agreement. It says it's a grant.
Well, where are we going to get the money from?
You're going to borrow it. That's what I was told. I asked.
Maybe.
I asked Dwayne, and Dwayne told me you were going to borrow it.
Oh, I guess that's what we're going to do.
Well, if you're going to borrow it, then my figures are correct.
Not about the $100,000, no.
Which part of the 100,000 isn't correct? You're only going to receive 31,000 after that 3 years. The TIF money is only the 261. That's the only TIF money. The other's coming from the rural development.
It's not how TIFs work. Larry, would you,
Dwayne has a hand up.
I just want to, clarify that it would all be TIF money, that $100,000 until the TIF is paid off. So it is more than 3 years. It'd be the $100,000 per year problem. So borrowing over $1 million for just say 4%, that's going to take 14 or 15 years to pay that off. But you would have to borrow that amount.
Okay, in that 14 or 15 years, that asset of that lot at $38,000 will bring in about $500,000 before Platteville's going to see any money. if it's 14 or 15 years. I've got 14 or 15 years at $38,000 worth of income off that lot. So that's over $500,000. If that's the way it is. So regardless, I have $1 million or I have a $500,000, I have 14 years or 28 years before you're gonna see any money.
You're charging $3 for your short-term parking. They're giving the short-term parking.
$3 per day, I'm saying, is gonna,
What
I'm
saying,
gonna have
those
2 or
20
3
I'm
cars
saying
full.
those 20, under the proposal of the developer, those 26 stalls are not gonna cost anybody anything. Under your proposal, you're gonna charge everybody that uses it to use it. You're gonna charge everybody to use it. Under their proposal, they're not gonna charge anybody.
The developer said 2 meetings ago that he would charge whatever the market would bear. He didn't, he said free
You just
tonight.
said earlier tonight
Tonight. He
that
didn't
it
the
wasn't
other
gonna be
night.
charged anything for the short-term parking.
But he didn't the first night,
Well,
Steve.
we're not talking about the first time, we're talking about the latest proposal. That's why we had the proposal brought forward. So under your proposal, you're gonna charge everybody for this. Under the developer's proposal, it's not gonna cost anybody for those short term. You
true.
think that the people are gonna come and pay that amount for those when they can get it free somewhere else?
If Platteville starts charging for parking, there won't be free anywhere
Well, we
else.
gotta
You
charge-
people said a
We
couple
gotta
of
start
times.
charging all over the whole city.
And you said that
If
you
you
thought
just
you
charge
should.
right over there, nobody's gonna park over there.
And you said you thought you should a couple meetings ago start charging all over the city.
Long-term parking, not
Okay.
short-term. I never said short-term.
But you see the difference.
I
Under
see the
your
I
proposal,
see the
you're-
difference.
You're charging for short-term parking. Under developer's proposal, there's no charge.
Okay.
Okay?
But I'm gonna get the money in the city, the developer's gonna get the money if you let them charge.
They're not charging.
They're not,
They will. One more thing I had, the downtown restoration project that we've talked about a couple times. You people probably are the ones that passed that. I mean, it just got signed in January of 11. In there, it mentions about developing downtown parking, more downtown parking, and you're literally taking some away. Why? What was your change of heart? It even mentions a ramp. I'm just saying leave the lot as is and be able to turn a good profit from it.
where are we taking it away? Under this proposal that was presented tonight, where are you taking it away?
You know there's going to be 160 kids there. Those cars have to go somewhere.
We're not taking parking away from what we already have.
All right, you're bringing 160 more, or 100 more cars into the area where the parking is. That's my point. You're bringing
That's your
more
assumption.
cars into
That's your
there.
assumption.
That's my, well, are none of them gonna bring a car?
You were talking about 1.5 times bringing cars a little while ago. I mean, if you want to talk about exaggeration, I'd say you're exaggerating a little.
I said 100 cars for 160 kids. One more thing.
Let's try to give everybody else a chance. to
Yes,
speak,
my
too.
final plea to you is that we digest these numbers of the parking downtown and vote this down. We can find a more suitable spot for an apartment building, but we can't find another Main Street full of retail businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn Barr, followed by Bob Stoffaker, followed by Kathy Austin. State your name and address, please.
My name is Glenn Barr. My wife Lori and I own Urshan's Florist at 10 West Main Street. And thank you, David.
And what's your address, your residential address?
Oh, I didn't know we were talking about residential addresses.
Well, we
My
asked
business's address is right on Main Street. I live in Platteville. It's a 3387 State Road 81. Platteville.
In the city?
I didn't say in the city. Do we need to clarify this more, Mike, or do you want to just keep trying to agitate the situation?
I was curious. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think as more people are aware of the figures that Mike just threw out, I'm sure some of you probably didn't realize that it was going to take so long before the city saw a dime. I know I didn't. So I'm very appreciative of that information. I'm here to ask you to please take your time, the time needed to gather other vital facts. that will help everyone see whether this development is truly in the best interest of the city of Platteville. Any question about the availability of parking for employees, tenants, and customers can be easily determined by gathering information which has currently been ignored. What we all consider a priority to know is how many employees work downtown that rely on a vehicle, peak business times included. How many tenants live in downtown buildings that rely on a vehicle either for school or work, if all apartments are fully occupied. Since there have been some recent changes made to available parking, how many 24-hour parking places are currently available in the same area? How many 2-hour parking places are currently available in that area? And how many long-term parking places are available in this area? Lastly, what is the potential increase in tenants if current downtown buildings develop unused upper levels for this purpose? So we can increase some density. I think that there are developments in that direction, or certainly ideas and thinking about that. I believe if the answers to these questions are sought out before making a decision, we could all feel better about the direction those answers point us toward. Let's have progress, but let it be informed progress. Please do not rush ahead with this project. Thank you.
Bob Stoffer, followed by Kathy Austin and Lori Barr.
I'm Bob Stoffaker. I live at 960 William Street. I work at American Bank, and I'm also on the Platteville Main Street Board. I've had a number of people talk to me since this has been a topic against the building of this, and I don't want to reiterate the things the other two gentlemen have already spoken about, but the other factor that nobody's brought up is we've got the new 600-bed building at the university, and where that traffic ends up, and then we have this and goes that way. I think we're rushing into this, just as the other gentleman said. Let's wait, let's give it a couple years and see what the impact is of the 600-bed facility over there, because we already have a parking problem. They're bringing 110 beds to that area, so the short-term parking that's available now for business people and their customers is also going to be overwhelmed by people coming to visit the people in that facility. So I think we need to take a step back and not rush into this. Thank you.
Kathy Austin, followed by Lori Barr, followed by Darren Sharman.
Hi, I'm Kathy Austin, and I am a co-owner of Cuttin' Up, which is a hair salon at 70 West Main. I live at 1503 Austin Road, Platteville, Wisconsin, and I've had the business for 19 years. I just like to make a couple of points. First,
I think you need to move the mic down.
First, I realize that I understand the need for bringing more people downtown. But for some businesses, mine included, I think that those students are going to find the businesses downtown, whether they live downtown or not. In my business, word of mouth and a job well done brings my clients to me, whether they live downtown or in the campus or in another town. I suspect this is true of many of the other businesses also. But some of the businesses on Main Street rely on people from out of town or non-students for their livelihood. For this, they need parking. We too provide services for out-of-town customers such as weddings and proms. For this, we need parking. The second point I'd like to make involves a number of retail businesses and restaurants on Main Street. Why are businesses leaving Main Street in order to relocate somewhere else? Why can't we keep restaurants on Main Street? Is the parking issue or a combination of that and other factors? It seems to me, along with the parking issue, we need to figure out how to get more businesses on Main Street, thus making it more appealing for people to shop downtown. I wonder if we shouldn't use some of our resources to fix these problems instead of adding more housing downtown. As it's already been stated, the students will find housing. There's plenty of it. Maybe the big question we should be asking is, if things don't change, will Main Street businesses still be here in 10 years? Thank you.
Lori Barr, followed by Darren Shireman, followed by Isaac Shanley.
Hi, I'm Lori Urshenbar from Urshan's Florist. Our business has been on Main Street for 28 years, and I love my job. You heard that before, but all my customers hear it too. I just love it. Glenn and I lived on Main Street for 17 years, raising 4 children. Our children have gained many positive lessons from the people who live in this great city, and we do think it's great. Just a few weeks ago, my oldest son, an airborne ranger, returned from Afghanistan. One of his comments included his future plans of returning to Platteville and wanting to buy a house. I pass this on to a realtor also. I am happy that Platteville has such a great impact on our children, and they want to come back. A core objective in the downtown revitalization plan that was adopted by our Common Council is to provide adequate supply of parking for downtown residents, customers, senior citizens, and employees. In the plan, the existing city parking lot on Bonson Street is the city's best immediate opportunity to build a parking structure. I have been spending time, and quite a bit of time, visiting with our businesses and collected many signatures of businesses against this housing development. And I didn't have time because I was still collecting today to give this to you ahead of time, but if you'd like to see it, I can show it to you. There's quite a few. Just a note, based on 2009 assessed values, excluding tax-exempt parcels, downtown Platteville's total property value is at $50.57 million. This is a great tax base for our city. That's the way I look at it. In our surrounding area around the Bonson Street parking lot, I talked to businesses with at least, between the combination of the businesses, they have at least 40 employees in need of additional parking. We need this lot to be available for employees and tenants so that our customers and visitors have Main Street parking stalls available to them. Our senior citizens need their parking solution resolved before their parking is taken away. This is a main artery of our parking to our downtown area, the most visible and the easiest to find for our visitors that come. Instead of rushing through this, let's take a deep breath and listen to our business owners who are saying, please don't put the cart before the horse. And I've heard that throughout my interviews with businesses that I have been in touch with in the last week. This lot is a valuable asset to our downtown community. It is worth the time to gather these facts and decide all together with all of us what is best for our beautiful downtown Platteville. Thank you for your time, and especially thank you for listening.
Thank you. Darren Sharman, followed by Isaac Shanley, followed by Jacob Schultz.
Hello, Darren Shireman. I live at 25 North 4th Street. My wife and I own Badger Brothers Coffee, that building there. I'll be very brief. We live downtown. We work downtown. We have employees downtown, and we have a good chunk of time ahead of us. So we have every intention of doing business downtown. We think this development, a development like it, whatever this plays out to be, would be a very positive thing for our downtown. Without discounting anything else that's been said, the things that inform my view of the parking situation, we don't see a significant problem with short-term parking. We think there can be things done with the senior center. All in all, to summarize our whole position, we really think that increasing the density downtown is going to attract new and viable businesses filling our empty storefronts. I think it'll encourage further redevelopment and I really think it'll be a positive thing for our downtown long term.
Thank you. Isaac Shanley, Jacob Schultz.
Isaac Shanley, live at 1030 Steamer Street here in town. Obviously, the parking issue has been brought up and will continue to be brought up until this is either approved or denied. So I'm not going to go into that. A couple of things I have comments about or questions in regards to is the value and the money part of it. The site value is looking through the issue that was sent out here. I see the site value is determined by the local assessor, going by the assessment. I was wondering why a third party or a couple third parties that are not involved with the sale in either way haven't been hired to actually establish the market value of the lot there. How do you know you're getting enough for the value of the lot? Maybe you're getting not enough or maybe you're getting too much, but I would think that somebody that's not involved with this transaction should be brought in to determine the true value of that lot there. And I'm not looking for us because we won't do it. So next one is, how is Stevens Construction actually brought into this here? I mean, I have never seen this property or lot being publicly brought up for sale. So all of a sudden we're just rushed into having Stevens Construction in, when most other times when properties are brought up and possibly sold, developed, it's often offered to the public for sale. Once again, that can determine if you're getting enough for this property here. And as for Stevens Construction, you were talking with the sum money here of the $261,000 for the lot, which by what I see are not paying up front. I don't understand why, if this is such a good project, why they're not paying for this property up front and then paying the tax basis. Many of the other developers in town here, the Holden brothers in Washington Street, Joel Kling, Jim Sherry, they've bought their lot, they've tore their houses down, they paid for these developments out of their own pocket and have paid for them up front as they went and not asked for any city money or any help from the city. So I'm kind of determining why the city is all of a sudden trying to become a lender in this situation here at the taxpayer's expense. With driving through town here, there are more for rent signs in the city of Platteville this year than what there have been in the last 3 years combined total. So is this another project that we actually need on top of the 660 beds that are currently being built, and then on top of the other properties that are in the process and also planned, but are also planned privately, not through them coming asking the city for help for getting the money. There's other land available in town here to put this project on, and is also for sale. As for the rental properties part of it, we're looking at 110 beds we're talking about, and we're talking about the parking. You're right, they're not going to take any parking away because it's there, but they're also adding 110 beds. And I always hear, the ratio. If I was to build a place right now, the other side of town, I'd have to have 0.75 parking stalls per bedroom. Why do they have to have 40%? In the last couple of meetings I've heard you keep saying they're going to have less and less cars in the future. I don't buy that. Everybody I know has a car, so that's not an obligation, a site there. So my biggest thing is wondering why this wasn't brought to the public for an open sale to let somebody else possibly want to come in here, do it on their own without taxpayers' money. And is it something we want to put the taxpayers at risk and all of a sudden having too many apartments, which obviously, or rental properties, which you're seeing right now. And then on the last thing I have here, if we're going to start having more and more for rent signs and the property values are coming down, so what you've done is you basically finance the project while lowering the taxpayers' property values in the city. So, thank you.
Jacob Schultz, Michael Mayo.
Evening, everybody. Jacob Schultz, 740 Camp Street, up through March. I lived at 87 East Main. And then prior to that, I've lived within the downtown area prior to moving and buying a house in Platteville, within the downtown district for the past 6 years. I regarding my profession, working with the ambulance and having to come and go on a moment's notice, I have not personally, while I was here, had any problems parking. I believe there's plenty of stalls available. It's very noticeable unless it's, the peak time of day between 11 and 1. Usually there's generally stalls on the city streets within the public parking areas and the short-term parking. 48-hour parking that we have tends to be a little bit more of an issue, but there are residents downtown that don't want to pay for parking. I personally paid for a stall. I had no problem with it. I did it because I needed a car within close proximity due to my occupation. Yeah, I would remain downtown, except for the fact that I can't really afford to buy a downtown building to make my own residence. So the thing I would say is we could use this project. I think the parking has been more than adequately seen and looked at. I think we're ready to move forward, and I highly recommend you guys that we do. We're increasing the density of the downtown area. It's positive. We're creating more retail space. And I think part of the reason that people aren't attracted to downtown as retailers is some of them don't wish to rent or remodel space that they may deem as inadequate. Now we're producing space that's brand new. And if we can attract brand new, maybe we will be able to in the future attract more. And in terms of long-term planning, this is a good thing to do. So I thank you and commend you, and I recommend you vote yes.
Thank you. I have a question for you. How much did you
Yes.
pay for that lease space?
I paid $40 a month.
48?
40.
40.
40.
And where was it?
I was with Mound City Bank, behind the Bailey Building, which was also a recent converted to rental 3 years ago, if you remember, in the historic remodeling.
Yep, I went through the open house.
Yeah,
Very
it's a good
nicely
place.
done.
Well, yep, you can thank I am in Charles for that. So, any other questions?
No, Jacob, but you should be aware that the retail space that had been proposed in this building has been removed.
Then I apologize. I was unaware of that.
Just be aware
So,
of that.
but anyways, thank you.
We added more parking spaces.
Oh, fair enough, I guess.
Okay, Michael Mayo?
Michael Mayo, 375 South Chestnut Street here in Platteville. I am aghast that this is coming up for an action item now. We have talked about these programs. We have talked about these housing structures. We have talked about the parking problems over and over and over again. And it seems that the council doesn't get it. Look at the fiasco that's going on at the Roundtree development. Look at all the problems we had with the parking areas. And it's really, now the city has to take on that responsibility. We have 600 beds going into that building. We have 100 going into this proposed building with no parking for these people. And now, what's the next project? Isn't there one down on Washington Street? You know, one of the things that Chancellor Shields said when he came in here, that it's a must for this university, is to be a good neighbor. And you know what? It's not happening. The university seems to be trying to take over our downtown. It wants to take over the entire, any possible area for parking in this town. And what else is they going to take over? Is the next project going to move the residents of this town out? That's one of the things that this council should think about and vote no on this project. And it's because of projects like this that I am running for council next year, and I have already started my campaign. And I will continue, because this council is not listening to the residents of this town, nor to the people who we have to congratulate, the business owners in this town. And Mr. Delecky smiles and laughs and makes his standard ridiculous faces because he doesn't understand or get the fact that he's doing this. And it's with our money, not yours. There's a president in this United States that has already done that. George W. Bush, who has sold this country down the tubes. And now we're going to have 4 generations before we can start to repay. Is that what's going to happen with this town? As it is now, that's what you've projected. Is that going to be your legacies?
Okay, council discussion.
I'd like to talk about parking. I did a survey for a whole week from April the 3rd to April the 10th, and I took 3 different times from 10:30 in the morning, 12:30, and 3:30, and drove from the top of Main Street to Oak Street, and the average empty stalls is 15 empty stalls on Main Street. From Oak Street to Water Street, I didn't count that because it seemed like if there was 1 or 2 cars at any time I went there, that would be it. And then from Oak Street, we have our city parking lot, and they have 10 2-hour parking stalls. The average filling of those, there's been 8 empty stalls as an average, and 3 or 4 different times, it was 3 times, there was no cars parked there, whatever. And on Oak Street going to Mineral and Oak Street going to Water Street, that was available for parking. I also went behind Garvey's on Main Street, and that averaged 12 empty stalls from 10:30 to 12:30 and 3:30 for this last 5 business days from last Tuesday to this Tuesday. The high was an empty of 14 were empty stalls. The low, they only had 8. On Main Street, when I came up with this figure of 18 empty stalls, there was a low of only 11, and there was one time 23 empty stalls. Also, on Pine Street, where the 22 stalls are proposed by the developer, it averaged 10 empty stalls from 10:30, 12:30, and 3:30 on these 5 days. The high was 16 empty stalls, and the low there was only 6. And every side street had parking. I didn't count it all because I figured I didn't need to. So I'm disagreeing with the downtown Main Street people saying they have a parking issue. There's no parking issue. And the Urshan's Flowers, I went there at 3:30 yesterday. There was 2 stalls in front, the handicap stall and another stall were empty. So this is just mine as a general observation, but these are the numbers.
I'd like to note a couple things too here, and I think it's easy sometimes to take these kinds of projects in isolation as if they exist without concern or consideration for larger sets of issues in this town. We've mentioned this before, it's probably worth mentioning again. Everyone knows that the university's on a growth path, whether we like it or not, and probably a lot of us don't like it. I personally don't like seeing my classes get larger, but that's what's happening. They're on a growth path, and they're going to do it whether or not we ride along with them. We can either ride the wave and we can benefit as a community, or we can simply let them do what had happened for the last 10 years, which is growth in the student population and no housing created to accommodate them. I suspect there was some idea at some point that the private sector would accommodate them. That never happened. And anybody who lives on the side of town away from where the university is knows what the consequences of this has been, which is every time a house comes on the market that's at all moderately priced, the kind of house a family might buy and raise children in, that house is snapped up by landlords, and before you know it, you got college students living in it. On Seymour Street, for example, I'm aware of at least 5 houses. Seymour Street is maybe the best family street in the entire city of Platteville, and we have college students living there. Nothing against college students. I make my living because of college students. But do we really want to displace families in this community simply so we can get all these college students out there? The council has undertaken some efforts over the last couple of years here to try to pull students back toward campus and free up those houses not only for people who would like to live here in Platteville, but also for families who have children. Why does that matter, people might ask? Because the school district enrollment determines state aid. Every additional pupil that the school district gets earns the school district between $6,000 and $7,000, which means that when we get enrollment increases, we relieve the tax bite on the local population who pays that. There are other issues that are going on now as well. Anybody who is a public employee or knows a public employee, whether you're talking university, city, school district, knows what happened over the last year with the changes in the state budget. Whether we like it or don't like it, the reality is that most, if not all, public employees took huge hits to their take-home pay. Thousands and thousands of dollars, all of which comes off discretionary spending. All of which is the kind of thing that people pay for lawn services with and buy new cars with and all the kinds of things that they don't do anymore because they don't have it. And the council, recognizing this, said, among other things, how do we try to replace that money? If we don't have places for people to come into town here and live who've got money to spend, then who gets hurt besides local business? College students don't buy cars, they buy pizza and beer. And for most of the businesses in town, that doesn't help them very much, if at all. We have other issues going on. Everybody's familiar with the fact that the state has eliminated the ability to raise taxes. Not that that's a good idea, but it's a foreclosed option. Can't be done. Which means if we're going to pay for all of the things that we need in this town, on top of the cuts that the state has given the city, then the only way to do that is through tax base growth, of which this is a presumably between $4 and $5 million structure, or I might note approximately 10% of the entire downtown tax base, according to Mrs. Barr. So when people look at this as if we're out of our minds, we may well be, but I don't think so because of this. This is a part of a project here to try to not only support businesses downtown, but create tax base and pull students out of houses where we could have families live in this town who might actually have enough money to support local business instead of just buying pizza and beer. And so when this is presented as if it's some kind of apocalyptic ending to whatever story we're playing here, this is part of a larger set of issues and questions we're all trying to deal with. We got about 9 things operating all at the same time here. We're trying to juggle and come up with some sort of resolution. Any of you out there who really study the economy, and I mean study it, not just look at what happens on television, but I mean study it, realize that this economy right now is in bad shape. The state of Wisconsin tax receipts are down. I'm looking at cuts again. I'm sure everybody in the council is looking for the same thing here again. What is the only way out of that? Maybe we should do nothing. But the idea that somehow we are sitting up here absolutely oblivious to any of this kind of stuff is not true, and it's not fair. And I, for one, represent the people who are in Platteville, and what I've been trying to do for the 2 years I've been on council is to try to create the most vibrant economic environment we can have here. There's 4,000 communities across the state of Wisconsin that wish they had the kind of problems we have. And I wish sometimes people would recognize just how lucky we have it here, because there's a lot of places that are just getting killed right now. I will note one thing. I appreciate how nice everybody's been tonight, and people have done a very nice job. Everybody's been courteous and respectful, and it's neat. It's nice that this happens. Democracy is kind of a messy business sometimes, but it's nice to see that it's not like it is in Russia here. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And so we may disagree on some of the stuff here, but it's not like we're totally clueless. And I wish people would understand that from time to time. It's not just about one thing here. I don't think we're ready necessarily to do anything here. Maybe we should retable it and look for some kind of alterations here to what we're doing.
Before we do that, see if, I'd like to make a comment
Okay,
myself.
sure.
And I don't
Or
think
Barb,
that-
I mean, actually Barb kind of was there first.
Well,
Let's
I
let
was
Barb take a
going to
crack first.
suggest that I am not prepared to vote on a developer's agreement that is dated March 6th, that there have been all kinds
Yeah.
of changes.
Just agree there.
There is additional information I would like from Dwayne. I would like an accounting of how this affects the TIF. Kind of, I mean, we were given some numbers tonight. I want to make sure that we actually have what's an appropriate view of those numbers. And Joe, I'd like to know how the number of non-leased parking stalls now within this building compares to the requirement that we have of the zoning ordinance. Those are a couple of things, and like I said, I'm not prepared to vote on an outdated developer's agreement.
Steve?
Yeah, and I'm fine with putting it off. However, I do want to say that under the current plan that was brought in tonight, as far as when I add the numbers up, as far as the number of parking slots that will be available under the current proposal compared to what it is, we're looking at 22 short-term that will be available to the public and plus 5 on the side, so that's 27, which is one more than we currently have now in the short-term parking. It meets the needs of the Senior Citizen Center. It provides 2-hour parking, which will be available without a cost. So we're, as far as I see, we're not losing any parking at all there. The 24-hour parking, the long-term parking that would be available for public parking will be available under a lease agreement. I don't have a problem with that. I think, as I mentioned before, it's time that maybe people pay for that. But I don't see us losing parking here, and I would agree with what John says. You know, I've sat down there and had coffee in the morning. I've walked Main Street. I was there today. There's a lot of places available to park right on Main Street, right in front of your building, right along the side, right over here. See it every day you're downtown. So I don't buy this. People aren't stopping in because there's not a place to park.
Mark, did you have a comment you wanted to make? Would you step to the microphone, please?
I have a thing I'd like to ask Howard, if I could.
Okay, why don't you ask Howard while Mark makes his way up there?
Okay, Howard, where the post office has got those mailboxes,
Yes.
that's totally so unsafe. Can we look at having that, either we may have to give up a stall, but when you pull up there to mail a letter and the guy's parked right in front of you, you sometimes gotta back up, and then the car behind you is almost in Pine Street. To me, we have to make that a little safer. You gotta look at that to say, we may have to eliminate a parking stall on that side, but where you drop off the mail there, you gotta take a look at that. I would like you to see you do that. Come up with some kind of solution.
Thank you.
And my question is, are we required to have that drop-off area there in the first place?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's a better place in town to have a drop-off area than where that one is. I mean, I would like to know what the postal, if there's a requirement,
There is.
and if so, what the obligation of the post office is in terms of its, and I don't need that tonight, but I'd like that as part of information.
Mark, you had some,
I just wanted to clarify now, and if this is getting tabled, this will all get clarified before the next time that it's talked about. But the numbers that were bantered about here were just incorrect. So there's a lot of things that need to be clarified. The project's adding the $100,000 of tax base each year. The $260-some thousand for the lot is being paid immediately. In addition to that, there's another $200,000 that's being paid over the course of 10 years. So there were some things that were said that were I think people were confused in reading the agreement. But
And that is why I've asked Dwayne, our finance director, to present a
I make a motion to table.
second.
you can have a seat.
Do you know what the square footage is of that?
Motion to table is not debatable. Roll call vote, please.
Miller,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Delecky,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Here's a question. We want them to come back with a revised developers agreement.
Oh, I
Well,
think
don't they
there's
need
other
new plans
information
too if
we've
they
asked
did a
for.
different footprint, maybe a work session for you guys? Since I won't be here.
And I would also say that at an earlier work session of the council, there was a request that the RDA look at parking downtown, and the RDA will be looking at parking downtown, and how much parking there is, where it's located, how people, who should pay for it, how it's paid for, and that kind of thing. And so there will be a couple of work sessions scheduled by the RDA on that.
I thought it was on the agenda this week.
It was on the agenda this week, and that's what our decision was. It will be on the agenda for the next couple of meetings.
I would also like to bring up the subject once again of the fact that this will be a private lot. The city will not have any authority over the parking. The current developers agreement says something about advertising for lease spaces in June. I think that needs to be looked at. I think what will happen is that the tenants in that building will lease all the spots. And there's a likelihood other people downtown who might be interested in leasing those spots will not have the opportunity. It says to advertise it in the Journal, no offense, Dan, but I don't know how many students take the Journal, so, and to advertise it in June, most students are gonna be gone. So I think we need to look at that in the agreement, and I really would like to know how the city is going to address the issue, maybe not of this developer, but I don't know if this developer intends to keep this project, to own it long-term. But if a developer or an owner of this building at some point says, you know what, I need to lease all those spots, or, I can't afford to have somebody check those 2-hour time spaces, or I'm gonna charge, $25 a day or something for those spots now. As I understand it, the city would have no authority over that unless there's something in the developer's agreement that very specifically states that the developer will check those 2-hour spots. And as I say, I would like to have something in there that there would be some availability for leasing for someone other than potentially just the tenants of the building. I emailed our city manager and asked him the questions about authority of a private parking lot. The city, as I understand it, the chief of police said that they could go in and ticket people if they're parking in a handicap stall when they shouldn't on a private lot. But other than that, we have no authority. And that is a concern.
Well, it needs to be included. If it can't guarantee it, then it doesn't solve the problem. So, you okay with them coming back with a revised version?
Well, I think we have to have something to vote on.
Question is how soon?
2 weeks might be kind of short to do
2
that.
weeks is too short.
Month? Well, come back when you can get it.
At least a month.
Actually, I would agree with a month at least, because the RDA is gonna be looking, as I understand it, at the number of tenants downtown, the number of employees downtown, the business owners downtown, what demand there is for parking, what parking we have, what is projected as a need. With all due respect to Mr. Miller's, study of the downtown, if you went by my house during the day, you might find nobody there except over the noon hour. And you find cars in the driveway maybe. So it really depends on the time of the day and the demand, and it's very difficult, I think, for us to determine without knowing how many vehicles there are that actually use the downtown on a regular basis. It's gonna be empty sometimes. That's the nature of parking.
Bring us back a revised one, please. Okay, moving on to information and discussion items. I can hang around for this if you want. Maybe not. Item A is the Library Board of Trustees and the application for a planning and facilities grant. Flip over to my new stuff here.
I have a question about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is the library board aware that this is now broken into 2 parts? Has this gone to the library board brought this forward.
Yeah, Cindy Tang is here from the library
Has the
board
li- yeah, that's what I
to
wanna
answer
know.
that question, so you're setting us up with a good question. So Cindy Tang, you asked to speak on this.
Cindy Tang, 995 Highbury Circle in Platteville. and I'm a member of the library board. And yes, we are aware it's broken up in two pieces, and we do support this proposal. We feel that EDP is a firm that can work to write an expedited planning grant for submission before June 1st, when the competitive process changes. They have a proven track record. They've worked with other libraries. They've wrote and submitted 5 CDBG planning grants in 2011 and have had a 100% approval rating. They have a history with working with libraries, and we are supportive of hiring them.
Has the library board indicated, Cindy, what they want to happen to the library? Do they want it to stay where it is and expand? Are they want to look for another lot and build new? Have they given
They
any
really
indication
need
at all?
a larger facility, and they're open to whatever works for the taxpayer. You know, they understand the taxpayer cannot afford to fund it, so we're looking for a model through applying for this grant to put some state and federal money in the project so that we can get in a large facility without having a cost to taxpayers. That's our goal.
And that block, Larry, where the library is, the option for developing that's still open until June 1, is that right?
That's correct.
And you're aware of that, right?
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions on that? Item B is permit parking on streets near UW Platteville. Based on a number of conversations we've had in the 2012 budget, we have a proposal to allow for UWP to create essentially parking lots on city streets, interior to and possibly exterior to the university. And I know, Barb, you have met with Larry, and has anybody else met with him?
I did.
I met
Patrice
with him.
did, and John, so, Ken, had you met with him?
I met, and I have a question or two. Why isn't all of College Drive included, minus the yellow part? College Drive, it goes down to the bottom, the drainage way, so you just yellowed that. And then you took off West Main from College Drive to Hickory. And I suggested also Hickory from Greenwood to Irene. So what was the thinking? Especially not including all of College Drive and also West Main.
The original proposal was what I had recommended, and at that time, the city council asked for me to meet with individual council members. At that point, I believe I'm tasked with interpreting and consolidating all 4 people's opinions. So I did the best I could with that information. Obviously, 4 different people are going to come up with 4 different ideas.
So there was a request not to include that portion of College Drive?
And Main Street.
Did you curl it around?
I would like to talk about what my recommendation was, and maybe others on the council would also like to talk about it. Personally, I have no opposition to permit parking on University Plaza, College Drive as far as Sunset Drive, Greenwood Avenue, and I suggested the addition of Southwest Road from, I don't even know what that street, J Street West. That would be the area by the stadium, and even the area that goes down the hill to, I don't know, what, Pioneer Road? I guess that's Pioneer Road down there. So I suggested the addition of that. The other thing I suggested is that we consider 2-hour parking or limited short-term parking, if you want to call it that, on West Main Street and on Hickory Street. It's my Hickory Street from Main Street to Pine Street. It's my understanding that we've already passed some kind of ordinance or resolution that deals with Hickory Street to Hickory Street as far north as Pine Street, and that's included in the the permit parking stuff that we did relative to the Roundtree Commons. So I suggested we might want to consider some short-term parking options for West Main and South Hickory between Main and Greenwood.
So when you say short-term, how long?
Well,
2 hours.
2 hours?
Between, Main and Greenwood run parallel.
Main and, pardon me.
Said between Main and Greenwood.
Yeah,
On where?
Hickory between Main and Pine, pardon me.
I'm suggesting also Hickory Street between Greenwood and Irene on the west side.
Ken, I believe
'Cause
we've,
that's next to the parking right now.
I know, but I think that was included, I think that was included in prior action.
Yeah.
Isn't that part of the Roundtree Commons?
That was part of the Roundtree Commons stuff.
But that doesn't mean we can't change it, because we have this next document that's changing things right here.
Like I said, there were 4 different opinions. I simply went with the idea that the streets highlighted are the ones that are used with the university right now under a parking arrangement
But I
for
gathered
plowing.
you did.
So that I thought was a pretty reasonable starting point for this relationship. And if it got to the point where it was successful, we could always expand it.
I actually agree.
I
I
think
think
that's
that
a-
that's a good start, and see how it goes, and we can expand it if it works.
You come back next time with a map
think
that
that's a good
is,
start,
that
too.
includes all those
Good for
other
me.
things as well.
Works for me.
I'm sorry,
You
it
had
includes,
a number of concerns about West Main parking and some other kinds of things here, and all we have is the one here that shows the yellow, the interior ones.
I think he's reduced it to that, is my understanding.
That's all you wanna do is that?
that's what I put together as a result of the comments, is that it did not include all of the aspects of all of the discussions. If you'd like me to do a different map for each person to give you an idea of where everybody stands on the issue, I could, no, I'm,
How much work you wanna do, Larry?
well, I'm happy to try to make sure that you guys have the information that I have.
It's not
Like
we
to be
should
blue.
remain non-permanent.
I'll
Those
be
are
orange.
city streets.
You should say.
Oh, okay.
Well, we could just try and see what happens.
I also have a suggestion on the resolution. At this point in time, there are dollar figures included, and I would suggest that instead of including the specific dollar figure, that we include something that says that the price shall be either the price that's set annually by the university, so that we don't have to come back from time to time and revise this, or if it's going to be, I assume it's $198 per school year now for permits for faculty and staff, and $150 for students. But if that's a percentage higher, then I think we should say, 110% or whatever it
that-
is,
in
instead of
fact-
a specific dollar.
In fact, as I recall, we talked about this being a one-year agreement subject to renegotiation, depending on how it went. And ultimately, I think you're right, just take the numbers out of there and say whatever is the university's numbers are, because the agreement, as I understand it, was they would simply provide us that $20,000 up front. And what they do to get it is their business, isn't that?
In all fairness, the original proposal included a lot more streets, and that was the 20,000. Now, if you take out half of those streets, I can't promise 20,000. I have to go back and talk to them about it. But I will certainly pursue that and ask them for that if that's the direction you want to go.
Well, I gotta believe that it's $150 per school year for students. Every 10 students is $1,500. I can't imagine that we aren't gonna get at least that.
Yep.
There's still plenty of parking.
Well, we can figure it out if you figure out the length of the streets that are gonna be covered, and how it says it's 22 feet per car, you can come up with a calculation as to what the income is gonna be. Because
will-
I went along and Main Street is full, period. Greenwood is full, except for a few spots.
They're not gonna have any trouble coming up with $20,000 out of this.
I will make the
Depends
changes to the
on
resolution
usage.
as requested.
On usage.
Well, when I
22
met
foot
with
lot,
Larry,
it isn't
I-
worth anything and nobody's paying for it.
When I met with Larry, I agreed with what Eileen had said at the last meeting, that West Main and South Hickory, they're city streets, they should remain free of needing a permit there, and so I instructed Larry, I said, I feel only the streets within the campus should be permitted.
Okay.
But I would encourage it to go College Drive all the way to Sunset.
I thought there was a reason why somebody asked not to do that, that the people who live there or something would want to park there. I can't remember. I thought somebody brought that up.
That was Barb.
As far as
That was
Sunset.
Barb brought it up.
I don't think so.
No, I brought up West Main.
Ken had a
She brought
question
it up.
about it.
Oh, you brought up West Main.
There's no parking on Preston Drive.
Yeah,
Introducing
That was her idea.
introducing different parking
Barb.
introducing different parking permitted regulations to the same area could create some confusion in that area. If we did regulate that street under the old parking permit, to change it now, less than a year later, could result in some confusion.
We're talking about College Drive.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were doing Southwest.
No.
Okay.
No, the only
See
concern
how
I had about
confusing
College
it is?
Drive is if that's left open so as to allow the people with homes there to have some room.
Yeah, there's
My
3
guess
houses.
is
Yeah,
it's
but
gonna get
just
used
went
up
as
anyway,
far
but
as
maybe we
Sunset,
should try and see what
the
happens.
Drive, the
Could
houses
be wrong about
are
that.
after Sunset.
Anything else on this?
All right, okay.
Yeah, houses are after Sunset.
Next under information is ordinance amending section 39.20 parking permit regulations. This is specifically the Roundtree Commons on-street parking.
This is the previously approved parking plan. What we're doing now at a staff level is we're putting into place the direction the council gave us for putting up signs and regulating the parking around Roundtree Commons. What we've noticed is that staff, through our discussions on how to implement this, we'd like to try to set some times that parking without a permit and when that is allowable. Specifically, you'll note, I believe we inserted pictures of what the signs would look like. And you'll see on them, let me scan down here. You'll see on them that we inserted Monday through Friday. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. As the time set for 15-minute parking and when that's permitted, as well as when the 2-hour parking is permitted. Aside from those times, what this ordinance does is it says you can either park with a permit or you can park for 15 minutes from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And by having the times in there, it allows us more accurate enforcement effort. If you recall, we do enforcement with our CSO officers, and so we'd like to try to schedule the enforcement efforts around when our staffing is already there. Extending it beyond 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. may require additional law enforcement time beyond what it was originally anticipated.
Now, in looking at 39.20, item 2 or section 2, those are new, those are changes? I mean, I didn't go back to the old one, but it looks to me like those are changes from the first one. Because you have parking, for example, on Southwest Road from Marquis Avenue to Pioneer Road, 2-hour parking.
The only thing changing is the area in bold. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, that's been inserted on number 2 and number 3. All of the rest is already adopted from, I believe it was last year at some point.
And that's also no parking 3 to 6. For example, Southwest Road, is that true, Howard? Southwest Road, no parking 3 to 6 a.m.?
Correct.
Yeah,
And Marquis Avenue, no parking, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Correct.
yeah.
And will that be added to those signs or not? So at Marquis, there's no
sign,
there's basically no overnight parking on Marquis and no overnight parking on Southwest, is that correct?
That is what the signage is currently, yes. But this would allow for overnight parking if you have a permit on those streets.
Not for the no parking area. I don't believe we amended the no parking area at all in this ordinance. Are you guys reading that in the ordinance?
No, that's my understanding, is that we did not amend the no parking from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on either Southwest Road or Marquis Avenue. That those are city primary routes and that those have no overnight parking.
That is still in place. If you pull, I can pull it up. Do you have the ordinances there? We can confirm that, but I'm positive we did not change the nighttime parking regulations or the winter regulations. I believe this one would be updated, Jan. Yeah. Okay. 39.
I didn't think we did, but if we inadvertently did, then they should be changed back.
We're just talking about
We need those for snow.
2-hour parking.
Right. They're just talking
would
about
not have
putting something in
changed
there so
any
they
of
can regulate.
Probably going to be in 30.
While we're waiting on that, let's take a look at D, ordinance repealing section 3.36 Cable Franchise Committee. This would be a really controversial one.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to do some research. We'll have to do some research to get back to you on the parking question. The cable committee, what has happened is a couple years ago, the state of Wisconsin took over our cable franchise contract. And so we're kind of just cleaning up the ordinances, and at this time, we do not believe there's a need for the cable franchise committee to exist any longer. That was something that was previously needed for someone who had concerns about the contract or any complaints they might have about their cable service. We no longer administer that. That's all done through the state of Wisconsin at this point. So if someone has a complaint or a concern, they should go to the state of Wisconsin to register that complaint.
Mike, excuse me, can I go
Yeah.
back a minute? I
Go
was
on,
waiting
sure.
for Larry to look up the question about
Sorry, okay,
parking. Larry, refresh my memory, the permit parking that's going to be taking place this year, starting in June? Is that right?
That's my recollection, yes.
Okay, and
I might have that.
my question is about how the permits are going to be mailed out or how that's going to be done. My concern is this: if you have income property, if you're the owner of an income property, and your tenants are moving out in middle of May to the end of May, new tenants are coming in June, I think it would be a very good idea for the permits to be mailed to the property owner, not to the address. And I wasn't sure that that's what was decided. Because otherwise what's gonna happen is you're going to have tenants who will receive them perhaps before they move out, won't know what they are, either throw them away or take them along, and they'll use them, and the property owner is gonna come back and say, but they didn't get any.
You know,
So-
as we implement this, there are gonna be issues like that that are gonna come up.
Right, but
And
just
we're gonna-
initially, I think sending them to the property owner as opposed to the address of the property would be a much better idea.
We can use the address on the tax bill. Previously, we developed a database based on the tax bill, the utility bills, so that we got everybody included in the discussion. But we could certainly do it that way.
Yeah, if you do the utility bills, you'll get some tenants that are in the process and possibly moving out.
Okay.
And I'll take those permits with them. Okay, we went past the Cable Franchise Committee. E is ordinance amending the official traffic map, no parking on Camp Street between Lancaster and Hickory.
And Howard, a tenant came to us and talked to us earlier about, he owns the building on Camp and Lancaster, where you wanna put the, so there is no parking. And I believe it's, what is it zoned right now?
It's
Commercial?
zoned business.
Business,
It's on the north side of Camp Street.
That one on the north side.
Right,
right.
yep.
We were just relaying his message and concern to you. If you can do
I
anything,
understand.
do, but
That's-
if you can't,
That's
the way it
something
is.
that's something that you all can give some direction on, but this was a request by the school district because they've had trouble getting buses through there with people parked on both sides of that street.
Can we prohibit it on just one side, since they
Sorry?
indicate the problem seems to be when there's both sides? And that might relieve
Yeah,
some of
that's
that concern.
basically what he was asking. He said he would try to contact you too. He had another meeting he had to go to.
call you tomorrow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he would contact you, but
talk to
he would like the council to have information on that, if one side versus two would work.
And often, I travel that direction every day, and often it is either the CSO or who's ever handling the little stop sign for pedestrians passing, the school students, the crossing guard often parks a car there. And there actually is maybe a better place to park it, which is actually on Lancaster Street. on the southeast corner of that intersection, which would get them out of that intersection entirely and open up a lot of that. I don't think there's much parking there except for that during the morning.
You're probably correct.
We might also ask our CSOs or whomever does that to stay out of that intersection because, and then sometimes they need to have a car there. If it's really cold that day, they need a place to hunker down while they're waiting for somebody, so.
Half a block. It isn't that far to park the car to walk.
Well, when it's 10 below zero wind chill, it's a little harder. So, next on information, then we have F, which is ordinance amending official traffic map, no parking on one side of the street in Fox Ridge subdivision.
This is a follow-up on the development in the Fox Ridge area. That subdivision was allowed to have narrower streets with the condition that it be signed as no parking on one side, and we're following that through.
Any questions on that? Okay. Item G is the Mound City Saddle Club lease extension. I don't know who should explain this. Larry, do you have
I do know a little bit of the history, but I'd like to rely on Howard as well. And obviously Mr. Miller is involved in the committee. The Park Rec and Forestry Committee gave notice to the Saddle Club that at this point they wanted to discuss the lease arrangement that the Saddle Club had with the city and asked them to come to a meeting, and from that I think they ended up providing notice that they did not wish to continue with the lease. We had a little bit of discussion at the committee meeting about how many events are occurring at that location. The location being the Saddle Club leased area for the horse corral in, I believe it's Legion Park. And we talked about whether or not the events warranted the use of the space or if the space could be reused for a different recreational purpose. At that point, the Saddle Club was asked to come back with some information as to how they intend to ramp up the number of events and the activities occurred on that site. The committee said, well, to give you more time to schedule that, what we'll do is we'll make a motion to ask the city council to extend the lease. I believe it's for a one-year period. Having said all of that, Howard, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
That's pretty much it. We're looking at the committee is asking that you extend the lease through December 31st of this year to give them an opportunity to finish the events that they have and to continue with what's going on.
Questions?
Give them an opportunity to come back.
Sue Wenke is asked to speak on this, followed by Jim Rosemeyer, if needed.
It's okay.
My name is Sue Winke, and I'm a member of Mound City Saddle Club and have had a lot of concerns about the horse arena, which maybe will be terminated. I left a packet for each one of you, and I would like to address a couple of yellow highlighted areas. We came about all of this in August 15th, that we were told to approach Park and Rec, new Park and Rec person over here, Jordan Burris, and kind of fill them in. What has happened? What are we doing? What is our usage? How is the facility used? And at that point, we found from 53 years of being passed down, the original lease, which you have had an opportunity to look at, it came out of a yellowed envelope. It was so wrinkled and watered. And when we looked at that old lease, our officers are the same officers last year and this year. When we looked at it, it was dated April 15th, 1964, been passed in that tote for many years. But the park board at that point in time in August didn't know that there was a lease that ever existed. When the arena was built in 1961, there was a verbal contract. We cannot find that. That was that 100-year / 99-year Southwest Wisconsin Roping Club / Mound City Saddle Club. It was called User Agreement, signed by Lawrence C. Kinchy, who was the mayor at that time. Since we can't locate that, that appears to be hearsay. When we went to the August meeting, some of the original builders came and kind of questioned, why are we here? Then they told us there would be no September park meeting, no October park meeting, and then on November 23rd, we get the notice non-renewal. Non-renewal our lease. So amazingly, we wondered why. Got it in the mail. It's November 23rd. Came from Jordan over here. And on page 4, if you go to that notice, it says the current lease as written will not be renewed for 2012. Okay. Then we approached the park board again March 12th. And at that time, they gave us time to show usage. Also, the terms were brought up, how could we generate revenue? And we again reiterated that insurance dictates how many events we can have. We need to have liability insurance. That I told Jordan, I met with her privately, I guess, just at Christmas time. I went in and I said, how do I write a proposal? What objectives are you looking at? And it was very informal. And she said, then have them ready for a March date. So I kind of drafted a couple of things with the agreement of all of our members. When we went to the meeting on March 12th, I got a little sentimental in my drafting. It's in here, and it's actually, I used the term our community. And it's obvious right now, I live at 1879 Stumptown Road. I am not a citizen per se in the community. Heaven forbid, I don't think you'd want all my horses located in town. Most members that are here or have horses, we're also in the townships. Now that's causing a little bit of a rift because it was a bluntly in conversation at times, we don't pay any taxes into the city that generates the revenue for the park use, for the maintenance, for salaries, etc. That's correct. But through the years, we have paid a lot of user fees to the Park Rec Committee. And what I want to do and kind of make it more brief, on page 2, if everyone who has this could look at it, this was emailed, and this is what you seen ahead of time. But there's errors. And I'm sorry, but I want to call attention. It says in the first paragraph, and I tried to make it very easy, I highlighted it yellow. Last year, Cindy Robles spoke with Saddle Club about getting more activities on the site. There was some discussion, but no plans to increase the usage. I absolutely firmly can testify not one Saddle Club member got a letter, an email, or a telephone call. She is not here to defend herself, but we did not have that conversation at all a year ago. Then I'm going to question actually Jordan's letter to us. The letter to us said we're terminated in that November 23rd, 11, we're terminated for 12/12. And then it says, and not renew the lease as of May 1st, 2012. Okay, we're getting non-renewed a couple of different times. We're wondering why. And when this document on page 2 was sent to us, I got it on Tuesday. We looked at all of this. We held a special meeting. And when we went down to the committee recommends that the current lease be extended until the end of the calendar year 2012. And then I just kind of figured out what that May date was. In the old lease, May 1st to May 1st, to be looked at annually in case there had to be something done to the lease. But all the time we've questioned it. Were we not good citizens? Did we not keep it in good shape? Our events, I have a whole page on them now. One horse show, 199 entries. That's a lot of trucks and trailers. That's a lot of people coming into the community. We hosted with the Block and Bridle Club a how to judge clinic. FFA people said, we'd like to come to Platteville and we'd like to learn how to judge dairy, beef, swine, and horses. They approached us, and she's not here tonight. I asked the mom, Suzanne Weigel. Her daughter, Jamie, provided the horses. We had this clinic. We had 38 communities that came and registered. 38 buses, vans that brought people into the community, but they're saying our usage, maybe at that location, can be questioned. Yes, it can. Some of our activities to have insurance would involve a trail ride. We can't have an accumulation without having liability insurance. Can we do more than those 5 events? No. We can't afford it. We can't afford the liability insurance. When this document on page 2 came, wow. There was an underlying reason why somebody in that park board wanted our land. And it says, Mr. Crowfoot, the city has budgeted $25,000 in impact fees, park fees, to convert this area to additional soccer fields. Wow, there's $25,000. I don't think no matter what we would have written, what we would have tried to defend ourselves, there it was. We got that on Tuesday. Can't hardly dispute that. But why do I want to still go through this information to you? Because we have youth people up there using all of the park facility. You get user fees from baseball, softball, the soccer program, adult leagues, and our little arena could probably make up 2 small soccer fields. But I don't know at $25,000 if that's worth it to the city, that type of investment. Please go to page, well, let's look at the user agreement that you offered us. Page 5, for anyone that has it. 3 points. Mr. Berkey had the city attorney draw this up. The first item says, notwithstanding the leaser having given the leasee, which is us, the Saddle Club, a notice date, November 23rd, 2011, terminating the lease. Well, we're terminated so many times. May 1st, 2012. And then we can stay at that location until December 31st, 2012. That's nice. That's 8 months. That's not even a year. 8 months. In this whole process of them telling us, feed us information, tell us. We haven't renewed our insurance because why write that large check when we don't know if we have a place? We can't hire a judge and give them half of the retaining fee if we don't know if we can have a show. We don't have a place. The second item on this 3-point lease says, the leaser, which is you, the city, or the park board, is not required to give any further notice. The leasee of the termination of the lease shall be done January 1st, 2013. We're done again. Can we come around? Can we? I don't know. But on page 7, this is big for you people. And I said I would never use that slang term, you people. When I went to 3 meetings, we weren't Saddle Club, we weren't Mrs. Winky. I documented and I charted 9 times we were you people. But on page 7, This is your park board manual. It's dated by Cindy Robus, September 12th, 2006. You have a remarkable young new director, Jordan, sitting here. Help her. You people are delinquent to the DNR. This manual says every 5 years you need to upgrade this manual to the DNR. Let her do her job and get it upgraded. I'm trying to do some forewarns, but page 7 is everything that's come out of your manual. And the first one says, master plan. That's what the outside says. By law, you have to give this on record with the DNR. This was dated, you're not quite a year behind. I went through all of the parks, 16 parks in the city of Platteville. 8 parks don't have to generate individual revenue to exist. They're there for some conveniences. Indian Park, North Court and 4th Street, Jenner Tower.
Mrs. Menke, can you kind of focus on what the actual item here is that we're talking about, which is a request to extend the lease through 2012? Because
Okay.
that's really what this is here that we're talking about.
All right, but I want to go 2 more items on this page, and then I will do a conclusion. At the bottom of the page, this is from the DNR. Page 19, the Parks and Rec Handbook, item H, despite the city's substantial amount of parkland, there is a need for creating a fairly expansive open space as possible alternative to the heavily used Legion Park. This recommendation is from the DNR. One more, down at the very bottom of the page, on that page in your park manual, it lists every park and rec person, the city council person, and you know what? None of them are here anymore. Not a one. People are making decisions, then they're off of the boards. So, in conclusion, $25,000 for additional soccer fields. I'm at the high school in Platteville a lot, Cuba City and Hazel Green. Last Friday at Platteville High School, boy, were the girls excited. First softball game of the year. Dressed up, looking great. The intercom about 1:30, it hadn't rained, and it said game canceled. You know why? The facility for the softball girls wasn't ready. And there's some slippery here or there or whatever. Just one other point for a suggestion, and I know maybe you don't like suggestions. When any of us go to, I don't care what meeting it is, if it's the museum, if it's water and sewer, if it's the parks, please send out a mandate that people should be introduced orally who they are. I went to 2 meetings, 3 meetings. Sometimes we didn't know who we were addressing. It would be nice to know, you are city council, I am Saddle Club sitting here. And the last suggestion on my closure about are we going to be extended, renewed, is every committee within the park board needs to once a year, whether it's girls softball, boys baseball, adult recreation, have them report to Jordan, their officers, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, addresses, telephone, email. When it said Cindy Robus contacted us, makes us look poor. We did not get that information. Once a year, could she send it out? Who are your new officers? Who do we talk to? And now back to the extension. It took me a while, but I'll share you an upfront.
Can I ask you to kind of wind it up here? We've been sitting up here for
I know it.
pushing 3 hours, and you know we could use a break if you get my meaning. So,
Okay, so the old adage, the kids go, here we go. All right, never mind. The extension, You will not have to look at us again. The club members Thursday night absolutely said, when we're terminated on 2012, we're terminated on May 1st, we're terminated on December 31st, non-renewal, non-renewal. They will not sign that 3-point lease. We are not going to remain up there. The lights were put down today. The wire will be going out. So you do not have to address. We will be done. Maybe not here in Platteville, but we just wanted some suggestions to you, the council, your manual, a nice young lady that deserves the right to do her job correctly with a couple of the things that I brought up. So you don't have to vote. We don't have to know your opinion on it, but there was the process. And I wanted the public, the TV people, and you to know our process. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, did you have a comment? Okay. No, he said he didn't want to speak.
Actually, it's a public meeting. Could we open the door back up again, please? We do have to leave the door open for public meeting. Thank you.
Okay. The last item under information tonight is a conditional use permit for 930 North Court Street. This is to request a conditional use permit to operate an intensive home occupation for massage therapy business. This was considered at the Plan Commission meeting on April 2nd, and they recommended approval.
This goes with the business, not with the property, right? So it's a conditional use for that business to be in that property, but if the conditional use permit does not belong to the property, so it's, if the business leaves, the conditional use permit expires.
No, if
Somebody else can't bring a different business,
someone else could operate the same business,
same business.
but a different
not a
business
different
would
business.
require a different approval.
The applicant has done this in a couple of other places, and we've had no indications of issues with it, so. Okay, is there anything else? We want to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll adjourn back to the table there and talk about fire and EMS for a few minutes, and then some downtown development issues. So, cameras go off, but the meeting will continue, and we'll adjourn at some point.